Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I am here today with Wendy Hernandez. She is a family law attorney. I am so excited to bring her to you guys. I know she has so much to talk about today. Let me just tell you a little bit about Wendy. If you are not familiar with her, you need to go check out her website, her YouTube channel, which are in the description of this video already. Wendy Hernandez, she's a Phoenix family law attorney. She's a divorce coach. She's the founder of the Hernandez Family Law Firm and the creator of the Command the Courtroom Masterclass. She's tried over 1,000 cases during her 25-year experience as a litigator. She is a courtroom warrior who has tackled every type of family law matter from divorce to child custody and everything in between. In addition to providing full-service representation for Arizona clients, Wendy is passionate about coaching individuals representing themselves on how to navigate the family law courtroom on their own, sharing secrets learned from the country's top law professors at the University of Notre Law School, and during her battles on the family law front lines. Wendy inspires her clients to feel competent, confident, and comfortable in the courtroom. Wendy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Angel. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I know that my audience is going to get so much from this session. So let's just get right on into this. As a family law attorney, can you speak to a little bit about what somebody is, let's say somebody is just getting into the court situation with a narcissist, or perhaps they're just coming to understand that a narcissist plays by different rules when they're in the courtroom. What are some things that clients could do to help you as their attorney or their own attorney to prepare for the court case itself?
Great question. So I think the first and most important thing is to take care of their own mental health. Practice self-care, get with a coach, get with somebody like you, Angel, get with a counselor, a therapist, get with somebody, because if you're dealing with a narcissist, this battle is going to be probably the biggest fight of your life, or one of them. And so you have to fortify yourself emotionally. So that's just a preface. And I will say that I do know some family law attorneys who have degrees, some sort of mental health degree, or psychologists or psychiatrists, and they're also JDs, attorneys. And they are equipped to deal, with the things that you're going to come up against if you're dealing with a narcissist in family court. But most attorneys, like me, don't have that experience and don't have that background. And so I've learned a lot to deal with clients going through these things and counsel them and take a trauma-informed approach, but I don't have the qualifications, and I'm sure that I probably don't handle things as well as they could be handled, and I charge a lot more than they should be paying for this sort of help. So that's number one. The next thing, once you're getting your help and taking care of yourself, I would say to people out there, they should expect that their ex, if the ex chooses to hire an attorney, is going to hire an attorney that is very similar to them. That attorney may end up being a narcissist, at worst, or could be an attorney who perpetuates conflict, and that's probably at best. So what that means for you is you can expect lots of drama, conflict, disagreement, the inability of the other side or the other attorney to agree to even the simplest of things. And that's very frustrating, and it's costly. So, and I'm not trying to terrify you, because I know you've already been through a terrifying experience, and you're probably terrified going through court, but you have to be prepared for this. So just understand the ex is going to hire somebody like them. The next thing is, and if you're representing yourself, then you're probably going to need some behind the scenes help from somebody. And I often tell people, consult with an attorney in your area. Even if it's just a consultation, you pay a few $100, it's worth getting pointed in the right direction so you know what the laws are, what the court is going to look at. And that is if you can't hire somebody. The next thing, and so do you have any questions? I know I'm talking here, Angel.
No, This is so good. I tell my clients all the time, like, your ex is going to hire somebody like them, but who has legal knowledge of how the law works. So they're going to know what motion they can file or any type of paperwork that they can do to exacerbate the situation. So this is so confirming. I'm so glad that you're aware that that's the approach that the other side will take, as a family law attorney yourself, that this is a situation that's it's already a very contentious situation, no doubt. It's going to get worse because of the type of person the other side is going to hire.
Absolutely. And it is, I will say that to whoever's listening out there, if you're not exhausted enough, having an attorney involved, like your ex, is even more exhausting. Not only for the client, but for the attorney. I'm an attorney on the other side of a case where, several cases actually right now, where there is, I think, a narcissistic personality involved on the other side for an attorney. And for every one email I send, I get 10 back, and we can't agree to easy things for things that would be easy with other people. It's very frustrating. So one thing that we talked a lot about when you were on my show a couple nights ago, Angel, was boundaries, creating boundaries. Yeah. And so when you're going into a courtroom battle with a narcissist, it's important for you to tell yourself, I'm not going to respond to every little thing that comes through, because otherwise you're going to be sitting in front of your computer all day, every day, responding to emails from your ex and from your ex's attorney, and you won't get rest. It will be stressful, and you're constantly going to be tied up in knots. So setting those boundaries, and maybe even getting a special email address just for your case, and telling yourself, I'm going to look at this email once a day or once a week or twice a week. And then I will respond to everything then, and let everybody know that that's the way it's going to be. Yeah. I think that you will give yourself some peace. Otherwise, you will have no peace.
Yeah, it's so true. We talked about this. And what actually happens in your brain is that when you are operating from a stress standpoint in the negative sense, because there's a positive stress point to be operating from as well. When you're in the negative stress operating zone, you actually shut down part of your brain that's creative. And so possible solutions, possible other outcomes are completely shut down. So the thing that you're seeking the most in these very high stress moments, you're actually closing off the neural pathway to be able to access them. So it's really important for your case, not just for your mental health. Of course, that's so important, but for your legal case, this is a necessity. You cannot spend all of your time being on your phone, ignoring your kids, not connecting to what's important with you, not taking care of yourself. All of these things, it's actually, for your legal case, a necessity.
Absolutely. That, it's a great insight, Angel. And, another thing is, from an attorney's perspective, when something happens in your case, and when you're up against a narcissist, it's going to be happening every day, probably.
Yes.
You don't need to call your attorney every time. And I don't mean that in a rude or disrespectful way. And what I often tell clients, that because it gets expensive, that's the main thing. It gets really costly if you're triggered or activated every time you get an email from somebody, and then you call your attorney. I mean, that adds up quickly, and that is part of what inflates the costs of litigation for you. And that's the goal, is to bleed you dry. That's part of it, financial, to bleed you financially dry. So what I often tell clients is, we can do a couple of things. And I'm, I'll say, like, if you want to call me, that's fine. I will, whatever level of contact you need. But if it's a lot, then you're going to have a big bill. If we want to help mitigate that, then maybe let's schedule a phone call once a week to go over everything that's happened in the week. Or maybe you can send me one email at the end of the week outlining everything that's happening. Just consolidating all of the happenings into one call or one email will help mitigate the cost quite a bit. From my perspective, every time I get a call from a client, I bill at 0.2 of an hour minimum. So, and I charge over $400 an hour. So that's a lot just for a 12-minute phone call or less. And most of them aren't. So I would say, unless it's an emergency, and emergencies do happen, see if you can save the conversation for a pre-scheduled time during the week or for an email that you send to your attorney during the week. Does that make sense?
Oh, that definitely makes sense. And I love that you are also aware that this is also a strategy, right? To try to bleed you dry during this process, because the narcissist is about winning. And however that happens is what they're after. So, yes, exactly. And this comes to learning coping skills, because even if you do get out of the court situation, when you do get out of the court situation with a narcissist, chances of you having to have contact with a narcissist are still fairly high. And so you don't want your life to be in a constant upheaval even after the court situation is done, which is why I talk so much with my clients about boundaries, because if you can learn how to operate in your new life right now, then that's going to help your case, it's going to help you, it will help your children, it will help with any transitions that need to happen, and it will help the judge see the clear distinction between your behavior and the narcissist's behavior.
That's right. Exactly, Angel. Well stated. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. When you're as an attorney, is it helpful for your clients to keep track of all of these things? I know you talked about in an email at the end of the week or something like that to consolidate the happenings. I have my clients fill out a tracker so that they can see exactly, what the narcissist has accused them of and things like that. And I encourage them to put it in a Google Drive or someplace where their attorney can access it whenever they have time, because maybe their time is not the same as your time, right? And so just to kind of keep track of all of the narcissistic behavior and potential abuse that's happening through the legal system.
That is a great suggestion. And I've had several clients who do that well. And I don't know if they took a class, if you were advising them, but they did it well. And so what these clients did was they created for me spreadsheets, and I tell all my clients now to do this.
Great.
They created a spreadsheet with dates, and just like a little blip about what happened, and then cross-referencing if there is documentation.
Yes.
That evidences what happened, like a text message or an email or whatever. They cross-reference it, and they may have it Bates numbered in a stack of documents or in a folder of documents. So what Bates numbering means in the legal field, it's a legal system of numbering. It's just page numbering, really, and there are free Bates numbering programs that you can get online. So they cross-reference for me what document substantiates what happened. So that makes it very easy down the road to select what we're going to talk about to the court and what evidence we're going to use. And another way that things get really costly is having to go through thousands of pages of paper and my trying to figure it out and my trying to categorize it. And again, I don't have a problem doing this, but in most of these cases, and for most people, money is an issue. So these are ways to save yourself some money, help your attorney's life, be a little easier too, which your attorney will appreciate, I promise.
Yeah, and so I actually developed one of these tracker systems that people can get on my website. And the reason that I did this was actually, yes, it does help attorneys. I actually created it for the client because I felt, as somebody who's gone through the court system my own self, that if I knew all of my thoughts, feelings, and emotions about whatever had happened, right? Some kind of thing happened, an email was sent, who cares, whatever it was being tracked and that it wasn't being forgotten about, then I had some sort of peace my own self, and then I was able to move on with my day. So I actually created it for my clients, primarily, number one, but yes, for attorneys, number two, and I encourage them to do the same thing you're talking about. Link the evidence that they have of whatever they're talking about. So yes, it's an important system. It's really helpful for the client's mental health, and as you said, better for their costs and easier for their attorney to keep track of all of the things that will happen in the case. So that's great. And
Absolutely.
You specialize. One of the things that you specialize in is helping people prepare to defend their own case. And you have the Command the Courtroom Masterclass. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Why did you start that? How did that all come about for you?
Yes, thanks for asking, Angel. Well, I've been an attorney for 25 years, and one of the things that I often saw going into the family law courtroom was a lot of people representing themselves. And I think most people actually represent themselves in the family law courtroom. But I would go in and I would see a person sitting across the room from me, terrified, lost, paralyzed by fear. And as a result of that, what ended up happening at the trial is often this person really couldn't even speak to tell the judge, these are the issues, this is what's going on, this is what I'm afraid of, this is what you need to hear. And then the result was many judges I saw made decisions that were probably not in the best interest of the children. And, I'm saying this representing the other party, and I care about the children. So I decided I wanted to help people who don't have access to resources to get an attorney to understand what the courtroom is, how it works, what they need to present, how they need to present it, what they need to present, what the judge is worried about. And that's kind of the birth of Command the Courtroom. I started filming these little short videos, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago. And I really didn't have a big intention like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. But it just kind of started to snowball. And now, I have a decent size following. And there's a lot of people I think who've been helped by the videos that I share and the program that I've created.
Oh, absolutely. And if you guys don't know, Wendy has an amazing mailing list where one of the first emails that you get from her is a best interest checklist. And a lot of people, I think, don't understand that best interest of the children, this is actually a legal term. This isn't what you think is in the best interest of your children. That has a role, that has an added element, but not until you've established the legal premise for best interest of the children. Is that correct, Wendy?
Right. So that, and I was just reading a case before we went live, Angel. And what this case said is that the primary consideration in a child custody case should always be the best interest of the children. Mm-hmm. And that should be regardless of where you are. Like, I'm only an attorney in Arizona, but whether you're in Maine or Florida or across the world, the judge should be looking at what is best for the children. And then each jurisdiction has a set of laws, statutes, and like in Arizona, they're called the child custody factors, the 403 factors or 404 factors. And they set forth the specific things that the judge needs to consider in determining what's best for the children. So, for example, what is the mental and physical health of everybody who's involved? Is there substance abuse? Has there been domestic violence? What are the children's relationships with significant people in their lives? What's the bond like between the child and each of the parents? Those are just a few best interest factors. So the checklist that you were referring to, Angel, several years ago, I did a survey of all of the states and all of the best interest factors and put them into one list. And so I have factors which I hope cover almost every conceivable situation. And then underneath each factor, I list questions that are prompts for people to think about in deciding, does this apply? These are the things I might need to address when presenting it to the court. And, the questions are even questions that can be asked at a trial or a hearing.
Yes. Susan Tucker is asking, can we get the checklist? And Susan, you can go to Wendy's website. It's in the description of this video, and subscribe to her mailing list. And I believe it's the first email that you get from Wendy. It comes immediately. So you can sign up to her mailing list. And anyway, Wendy has so many resources that come through her mailing list. I highly encourage you to subscribe. Even if you don't have children, if you're just getting a divorce from a narcissist, that can still be contentious. And the resources that she has are still extremely helpful. So go sign up for sure for that. And Wendy also has her own YouTube channel, which is also linked in the description of this video, where she has so many different people on her channel who can be resources for you as well. Wendy, so the best interest checklist is certainly one of the factors that come into, and it should, as you said, it should be the most important one. How does how does things like the narcissist behavior, which sometimes takes a while to expose to the judge as harassment or as damaging communication in some way, shape, or form, how does that have a play in it? And what do you say to your clients when they feel like they're not being heard or their case isn't being seen for what it is?
Great questions, Angel. So in Arizona, one of the factors that the courts consider is whether one party is more likely than the other to promote frequent, continuing, and meaningful contact with the other parent. And I suspect that other jurisdictions have a similar factor that the court should consider. So a lot of the narcissists' obstructionist behavior or interference with parenting time falls under this factor that you can present. But aside from that, attorney's fees are often an issue in these cases. And what that means is a court's going to decide, should one party be paying the other's attorney's fees and costs at the end of it all? How reasonable are the parties being, treating each other? So a lot of the narcissistic behavior goes under that reasonableness prong that is relevant to attorney's fees and costs. So if you're up against a narcissist and they are being unreasonable, they're taking ridiculous positions, they're interfering with your time, they're saying no things to things that should be easy yeses, then check with an attorney but in your jurisdiction, but you should consider asking for attorney's fees if you haven't. And so a lot of times, Angel, the evidence that I submit for trial are these back and forths about, hey, can we switch the day by, from this day to this day, or can we switch the meeting place just this time, or this is the offer, which is very reasonable. And you can't admit, under the rules of evidence, you can't admit settlement negotiations except for purposes of reasonableness and attorney's fees. So I save all this information and I submit it as a potential exhibit for trial because it's important, and I think it paints a picture for the judge how the narcissist is acting throughout the litigation. So, and you asked another question which I forgot related.
I was just asking how you help somebody who's your client who's feeling as though their case isn't being heard during this time, because it does take time, especially because I think in most cases a judge does want to do 50-50, and so they want you to show me why your case should be going against what they want to do already. So sometimes it does take a lot of time for the case to unfold. So how do you help, or what do you say to your clients who feel like their case is kind of being overlooked in the courtroom?
So one of the first things I tell a lot of clients is this is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's a hard thing to hear, but especially when you're dealing with a narcissist, the case is it's not going to be over in a few months. It's going to go on probably forever, or at least until the kids are emancipated. And you probably will not just go to court one time with a narcissist. You will end up in court more than once. So, you just have to fortify yourself for that. In terms of convincing the judge, I think that there needs to be increased awareness among the bench about narcissism and what it looks like in child custody cases. I feel like judges need to be educated, and that's another reason I do what I do, hoping that it'll get out there somewhere to somebody who needs to hear it. But really, it's important not to go to court and say, my ex is a narcissist, unless you have a diagnosis. Because then I think a judge is going to think you're crazy if you say that. Because honestly, Angel, that's like the new buzzword and everybody says it. So I think...
Absolutely. And honestly, one of the first things that I tell my clients, because they'll often say, like, this is what they do, are they a narcissist? I'm not diagnosing someone, and neither should you. That's a waste of your time to do that. What you can focus on is harmful behaviors and exposing those in court. And you cannot say, in fact, I tell my clients, you cannot say that they're a narcissist without somebody, not even just a diagnosis, but somebody who can speak. You need an expert witness if you want to say that. You need somebody who can come in and say, this is what it is, because people think about a narcissist as somebody who takes too many selfies. They don't think about a narcissist as somebody who's extremely damaging to somebody's psyche, to somebody's identity, that's harmful for the children. That's not the first thing that people think of. People think of that person likes to go to the gym a lot and take selfies. That's what most people are going to think. And so it's not even helpful for you to try to use official diagnosable illnesses as the label for your opponent, for your ex or whoever you're going to court with. So it's not a good strategy to do that.
Agreed. 1,000%. So like you said, focus on the behaviors, focus on the evidence of the behaviors. Your testimony is evidence, but it's stronger when you can back it up by some sort of documentation. And a lot of times what I see is that the narcissists do eventually end up slipping in one way or another. They reveal their colors, and just one instance may not be enough to convince the judge. But over time, over the course of a case, and maybe even over years, enough of these instances or slip-ups happen that a judge may be able to put it together. But what you need is the documentation. Potentially mental health evaluation could help, although I understand narcissists are pretty skilled at getting around that diagnosis. But I've dealt with cases where that diagnosis has been made. So... Yep. And that's really helpful. So you just, if you feel like you're not being heard, all I can say is you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And probably you're doing it because of your kids, and those are the most important and vulnerable people in your life, and they need to be protected. So when you feel like giving up or like nothing's going to work, you have to continue to fight like hell, because your kids' future is at risk. That's the way I see it. But I know people feel beat down. They want to give up. Sometimes they get hammered with attorney's fees because the judge thinks they're the crazy one. And you just want to throw in the towel. But, take some time if you've suffered a bad loss and grieve and heal. But you got to get back up, because the kids deserve it. That's how I feel about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always tell my clients to really think about why they're getting into the court situation. Even if they weren't the ones who filed the paperwork, you need to think about what you're fighting for. What is that? And write it down on a piece of paper and put that all throughout your house. You need to have it on your fridge. You need to have it above your headboard. You need to have it, on your bulletin board in your office. You need to have it on the dash in your car. You need to have that everywhere, because absolutely what you're saying is, like, it's easy to get focused on potentially a loss of a battle, and so that makes you want to give up the whole war. And you have to be dedicated to your why, and try as best as you can to get a team around you who share the investment in that why and helping you see your goal. So I totally agree with you. You have to know your why, and especially if you have kids, of course that's going to be your why. And if you don't have kids, maybe you want kids later on, and making it through this divorce is the first step in getting that foundation set up so that you can have the life that you want later on. Wendy, this is something that we didn't talk about in the pre-show, but I'm just curious. Have you seen we've talked about narcissists potentially hiring attorneys who have narcissistic traits. Have you seen narcissists becoming judges in your case, or is this something that you can't talk about? If you can't, just say pass and we'll move on.
Well, I can say that I've seen narcissistic personalities, now that I'm more informed about it, everywhere, including, I can't make a diagnosis, but there are judges I believe to be narcissistic. There are custody evaluators I believe to be narcissistic, supervisors for parenting time, and just like police officers, and lawyers. So absolutely, there are judges out there who are narcissistic. It happens. It happens because, that's, I think, they seek these positions of power, or, people look up to them, and
that's absolutely right. Yes.
Some end up in these roles, sadly.
Yeah.
And we have to do the best we can. It's difficult when you get put into that situation with a narcissistic judge. It's difficult. And I would, for people out there who feel like, oh, their case just got assigned to somebody who has a reputation of being a narcissistic judge or just not a great judge, talk to your attorney, because in many situations there are ways that you can change a judge. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not so easy. And for example, in Arizona, under normal circumstances, we can change a judge once in a case for any reason or for no reason. Just change the judge. Right now we can't because of COVID, and there's like a special administrative order in effect. But normally you can do that in Arizona. And then there's other situations where you can change a judge for cause. The problem is you have to ask the judge to recuse him or herself, at least in Arizona. So how many judges are going to do that? Not many.
So I have my whole testimony video is on my YouTube channel, but actually I did that and I had a judge recuse themselves. So it's possible to get it done, and especially, it comes down to documentation and the way that you present it, when it would sometimes be easier for the judge to recuse themselves than to take a loss if you were to escalate the case into a higher court. So anyway, that's just one thing. Before we end, Wendy, I want to end on like a high note, if you will, because this can be a heavy topic for people to think about, and especially like if the truth is kind of hitting you all at once, it can feel super overwhelming. Back to your Command the Courtroom masterclass, can you tell us just a few testimonies of people who've taken it, how it's helped their class, the feedback or their case, I'm sorry, how it's, the feedback that you've gotten from putting out that resource?
Sure. So, and there's a video, Angel, somewhere on my YouTube channel of my first two students were guys. And this was many years ago. And so one of them went through a court battle for years representing himself. And so I interviewed him within the last year. And he really gave heartfelt and compelling testimony about how Command the Courtroom helped him represent himself and the things that he went through, the things that he learned. He was very motivated. So that's part of it. I want people to know that you're invested in your children, and it means that you're going to have to do some homework and do some work and study, hit the books, but it's possible for you to do a great job. So that interview that I did, his name's Jose, is just one example of how people have handled their case on their own using the resources on Command the Courtroom and gotten a great result. I get on a weekly basis almost people reaching out to me via email and telling me how, they don't feel so lost in the courtroom anymore, or that they won custody, or that they won grandparents' rights. In one case, and I think I have this on the homepage of the Command the Courtroom YouTube channel, I got an email, a really touching email from a mother who had lost her children many years before. And she talked about how really she suffered for many years because of this. But then she found Command the Courtroom and kind of started studying, and then came to an understanding of what happened in her case, and it gave her peace. So that made me feel really great. Although she didn't have the relationship that she wanted, she was able to find peace later in life and have an understanding. And sometimes understanding helps. You don't always need understanding to heal, but sometimes it does help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a video that's coming out on my YouTube channel in a couple of weeks talking about that exact thing. Because sometimes people have to put aside understanding, especially when you're in the middle of the courtroom situation, right? You're not going to understand, why is this person doing this to me? How could I have been married to this person and not have seen that this is how they are actually behaving, and things like that. Sometimes you're going to have unanswered questions for a while, and you're going to have to be able to still make sense of what's happening right now, so that you don't keep living the same way over and over and over again, whether you're with this person or another person who has a similar, personality or traits of that personality.
Exactly. That's right.
That's really good, Wendy. Anything else that you would like to mention or talk about before we end this broadcast? It's been so great to have you on.
It's been great to be on again. Thanks, Angel. The thing is, I always tell people keep on trucking, and that's kind of corny, I know, but I whenever I've gone through my life, and of course, my mother, thankfully, has always been there for me. And I go through down times too. And since I was a little girl, like if I feel like giving up, I felt like quitting law school. I don't know how many times. And she would tell me, you can if you want to. But then I would make a decision, and then she'd always say to me, keep on trucking, then keep on trucking with what you're going to do. So, you have a choice. Whoever's out there listening, you have a choice about your life and your future and what you want it to look like and what you're going to pursue. So really explore, understand what that choice is, set an intention about how your life is going to look, and then just keep on trucking with it. So That's what I have to end with.
Yeah, no, that is so good, Wendy. And it's kind of one of those things where, the old cliche of like, where there's a will, there's a way. But it is actually true, because if your will is to see the end goal be a certain thing, you will find whatever type of way. If the narcissist can find so many different types of ways to file motions or send you harassing texts, or think of all of the ways that they're able to access their goal, even though that it's a twisted, sick goal, they're still finding a way to get at their goal. How about the healthy person? How much more would you be able to reach your goal as long as you're able to keep your focus on your why and keep moving forward and listen to your attorney? We kind of talked about that when I was on your show, the ability to trust your attorney. I will say I've had clients come in who didn't hire an attorney who at all had an understanding of narcissistic abuse, right? And so it was clear that they didn't want to appear aggressive when the other side was filing motions or doing escalating behavior, where so there are times where I think it is concerning. But if you've hired somebody who knows your case, who's agreed to your goals, who's agreed to help you fight for the outcome that you're looking for, there's the part of this process is learning to trust people, right? Because oftentimes the person who's hiring you is feeling very betrayed by everybody and doesn't know who to trust or where to turn to. And so part of this process is learning to trust that other people will have your interests in mind, and that they will fight for the goals that you've asked them to fight for. And sometimes that might look different than what they would think it should, moving forward.
Yes, and I know it can be scary, for somebody whose trust has been betrayed, first of all, because their trust has been betrayed, but secondly, because attorneys get such a bad rap, for being snakes or liars or whatever. Not all attorneys are that way, I will tell you. They aren't. But you have to find an attorney who understands what you're dealing with, first of all, and also find an attorney who's in alignment with your values, with your energy, because if you're not in alignment, it's not a partnership that's going to work. And there were times earlier in my career where people would hire me and they'd say, I want a bulldog, I want a junkyard dog, I want a real jerk. And that's not my nature, but I would try to be that, or I would take on the case and say, yes, I can be that. And it just never worked out, and it never felt right to me. And I can still be effective without being a jerk. That's what I've found and stepped into. So whoever's out there listening, and you're going to go through the process of interviewing attorneys, whoever you are, you just have to feel some sort of alignment with them. And I think that's one of the most important things to talk to them about.
I think that's great. And just kind of wrapping it up with Command the Courtroom, I think that is such a useful, even if you're not going to represent yourself, even if you plan on hiring an attorney, you should know certain procedures, how court works. You should know certain legal terms. This is, like you said, it's going to last longer than just a couple of times in court. The judge signs the thing and then you get what you want. And especially when you're dealing with a narcissist, that's just simply not the procedure that's going to happen. And so it's important that you're educated on what you're walking into, so that when you do have a conversation with your attorney, you're tracking what they're talking about, right? You're working in harmony. The attorney isn't trying to get in a flow and talk to you about strategy, but then, okay, what does that mean? What is that terminology? And of course they're there to help you, but it's just easier when you guys are both on the same page, and easy to get in, talk about the situation, and leave on the same page. Again, talking about investing money and how expensive it can get. It's important to do your part in this situation.
Absolutely, precisely, and again, well stated.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Wendy. I truly appreciate having you. Again, you guys, Wendy's links, the link to her website, the link to her YouTube channel are in the description of this video already. Please go check those out. Both of them are amazing resources. I recommend them to my clients every single time that I get a new client. That's one of the things now that is just I immediately point them to, because she has such a wealth of knowledge. Wendy, thank you again so much for being on the show. We should do it again sometime if you're willing. Come back on.
Totally. Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you, Angel, for having me.
Thank you again. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.